Okay, so this is the day 43 review. Tried to do it last night. Phone ran out of memory, shut me down. Had to do a huge photo dump to the laptop to free up some memory on the phone. Um, anyway, yesterday we got a late start. We all slept in till after 11. Guess everybody was just really tired from the ride and we needed a day off, but decided to go ride anyway because we were just going to do a easy loop. Left here probably 12:30, headed south on 550 to Ridgeway, which is under a lot of construction. They're trying to widen that, turn it into a nice 4-lane, which it needs to be, because there's just so much traffic going down there and people hauling RVs and stuff, which just slow everybody down. Anyway, got to Ridgeway, turned west on, I think it's Highway 62 that you would take if you were going over to Telluride. Real pretty view, lots of view of the San Juan Mountains. Stopped at an overlook up there that I stopped at years ago. I want to say 2016. Of course, it was April, but the mountains were just completely covered in snow, and it was 28 degrees that day. Yesterday it was in the mid 70s, very little snow on the mountains, but it's also late September and it's been a pretty hot summer. But it's a fun ride. We reached Highway 145, I think it is, that you can turn left and go to Telluride or turn north and head up. I think it's the San Miguel River Canyon. Just a real pretty ride. Once we got ahead of a dump truck and a big 18-wheeler, it was just smooth sailing. You don't have to go fast. It's just a nice, fun, twisty road. Real easy to get a nice rhythm going. You don't have to tear out of the corners or ride like a maniac. Just real pretty. And then you cross the river, and then you start climbing up out of the valley, and then you get up onto the flats where Norwood and Red Vale and Nature Rita and some other towns are. But by the time you get to Nature Rita, you're starting to drop back down into another river canyon. I think it's the Dolores River. And this canyon gets pretty epic. I mean, huge, massive rock cliffs on one side and big, huge drop-offs on the other side. So if you're going to blow a corner, it's going to hurt either way. It's kind of sad to see, stop at some of these really cool places and start looking around, and there's people that have gone out there with spray paint and sprayed all over the sandstone rock. And, just, I don't understand that mentality, but someone's gone out there and tried to spray over it with paint that's close to the same color as the rock, but it's still, real obvious. But it's just a really cool ride. I mean, there used to be wild horses out there the first time I rode it back around 2000, 2001. I haven't seen any out there since then, but I'm still always watching. And of course, there's deer and whatnot out there. Stopped at the Hanging Flume. Some of y'all who've been out there probably know what that is. It's a water channel embedded into the cliff face to carry water down to where they were doing hydraulic mining. I'm sure some people died making that. It's back in the days before OSHA, for sure. And just amazing what they were able to do back then. And it runs for miles. Mostly it's just remnants now of wood framing sticking out of the cliff face. Still kind of cool. And they've got signs up explaining everything about it. Got past that, there's a coke oven down on the left a little ways past that. That's kind of cool if you want to ride down the little dirt road to get to it. Anytime you get in an area where they've been doing mining, you'll see a lot of these big rock. They look like giant igloos, basically. They burn huge fires in them. I don't know exactly what they used them for, refining the ore or what. But anyway, we didn't stop at that. Daniel had already gone down and checked it out before I caught up to him. And then we stopped at, I don't know if it has a name, but there's a spot at the base of one of the cliffs where there's some trees growing. And there's a little pull-out parking lot area, gravel. And you go up underneath the cliff in a little hollowed-out area where the trees are, and there's a cistern in there made out of bricks, concrete lid on it, and a little water hose that comes out of the bottom. And the hose is flipped up over on top of the concrete lid with a rock on it so the water doesn't run out. And you just pull the rock off and lower the hose, and the water starts coming out. And it's clear, clean, presumably good. I've drank out of it, years ago, and a few times I've been up here since then. The interesting thing is in these mountains and in these canyons, they did a lot of the uranium mining for the bombs in World War II, to make the atomic bombs. So who knows what's in that water? I mean, my eyes aren't glowing or anything like that, are they? I don't have any problems, thing like that. So, yeah, it was good. It was cold. It was refreshing. And then you go through a couple more curves through the canyon. There's this huge, beautiful green mountain that I'm assuming is composed of oxidized copper. It looks like the old roofs on the buildings that use copper sheeting. Pretty cool. And then eventually the canyon starts to open up, get wider as you get on the north end towards the little town of Gateway. We tried to stop in Gateway to get gas. There's a gas station right there by the fire department, and there's a little 50s diner, like trailer food truck type deal that I ate at last time I was out here, and they were closed. The gas station was closed, but the pumps were open. But I don't know what was going on with the pumps. We did eventually manage to get gas out of all of them without any problem, but there was a group of Harley riders with us that they just gave up. They couldn't get them to work. So then we headed on out towards US 50, and that's also just a real pretty ride through a neat valley with big, huge cliffs on either side and farms down in the middle. And then eventually we got to a spot where we parted ways with Sarah. Daniel and I were going to head back down the top of the Uncompahgre Plateau on the Divide Road, which is a really wide, heavily used gravel road. People hauling RVs up into the area to camp and hunt and whatnot. So Sarah kept going on the highway until she got to US 50, and then she just turned down 50 and came on back to town and called me and let me know she made it to the hotel. And amazingly, up on the mountain in the middle of nowhere at 10,000 feet, I actually did have cell service, so I was able to talk to her. When we got on this road, it was about 5 o'clock, and I'm thinking, okay, it's 85, 90 miles. If we can run 30 miles an hour, it'd be 8 o'clock by the time we get back to the hotel, hopefully. And it hadn't been getting dark till about that time, or close to it. So we started up a series of switchbacks, and the washboards were just brutal. I don't know that I've been up washboard roads that rough in a long, long time, especially on a big, heavy bike. I mean, we weren't carrying luggage. We had left most of that back at the hotel, so that helped. But I'd go to try to get on the gas to get up the hill, and the back end would just start bouncing like crazy, and it would just rob all your momentum, and it was just really hard to get up the hill. Daniel didn't seem to be having quite as much trouble with it, probably because he just ignored it and didn't care. His bike's a little bit lighter too. But even after we got through all these switchbacks and everything, we got on top of the mountain where the switchback stopped, and it kind of opens up more, and it's just gentle up and down, back and forth. It was still just, it was hard to run 30 miles an hour. I mean, it was hard to run any speed. And then there was heavy gravel on the road, big, chunky gravel on the road that bounces you all over the place. And I'd be going through these corners and leaning and trying to get on the gas, and the bike just didn't want to turn. And just both tires would be skipping and bouncing, heading towards the outside of the corner. And I'm like, come on, let's turn, Finally get through them. And it was just super dusty. It's been really dry. And then the Forest Service was doing some controlled burning on the north end of the road where we started, so the smoke was pretty bad for a while, and that gave me a screaming headache, and it was burning my nose. It made for some interesting views because of this evening sunlight, but we finally got out of that and it cleared up. The road got a little smoother. Started running through aspen trees. It's a hard-packed surface. Some areas they had spread a bunch of gravel. It's about the size, maybe a little bit smaller than the stuff they used to chip seal the FMs back home in Texas. So not real big. And so when it starts getting kind of deep, especially in corners on that hard-packed surface, it's like riding on ball bearings. And again, trying to get the bike to turn, going through these corners that don't have guardrails, and it's a long way down if you blow it. The front end would start to tuck, so you would get on the gas to try to, pick the front end back up, and the back end would start to slide. And, you'd feel like you're going to fall, no matter how much you counterweight the bike and everything. But we got through it. Even Daniel was struggling a little bit on it, which is unusual for him. We were rewarded with some really, really incredible views from 10,000 feet plus. Places where it opened up and you could see out to the west forever. And then to the south was this huge, huge thunderhead growing bigger by the second. And the sun started lighting that up and the moon was coming up behind it. And then there's all the trees that are changing color. It was very surreal. Now, we had been cruising along about 40 on a long, wide, open section through the aspen trees, and then I see this huge deer on the left. Slam on the brakes. He runs left into the woods. Daniel said he saw 2 more on the other side of the road that I didn't see. So, being mindful of that, we kept cruising about 30, 35. Pulled over. There were cows everywhere. There's a lot of open range up there, and they got these black ninja cows that just hide in the woods, and they will pop out of nowhere. And you wouldn't think they'd be that hard to see, but they hide in the shadows. And you got to really watch for the calves. The older cows, they're cool. They'll hang out. They don't usually panic. But the little ones, if they're not near mama, they're going to run. And so we had to watch for them. Pulled over at an overlook. It was getting, 6 o'clock, 6:30. Sun's starting to get lower, making the trees really light up, really cool. But at the same time, when we pulled out of that overlook, there were 8, 9, 10 cows in the road. And right behind them were 2 huge deer. One of them was a buck, big buck with a rack on his head, and they ran off into the woods. And then not far past that was a freaking huge moose standing in the middle of the road. I mean, we were 100 yards or more from this thing, and it was bigger than a horse. I mean, it was really big. Just standing there looking at us. Didn't get the cameras out in time. He heard the bikes and kind of looked up and then took off into the woods and ran off before we could get to him. And then it started getting darker. Had to take off the sunglasses, and it's getting hard to see, even though I got big, huge lights on the front of my bike, so I could light the place up. We were going on, we crested a hill and was cruising along, open visibility, and all of a sudden I see something in my peripheral vision, and this big, huge deer comes shooting out of a bush, and he runs at me at an angle and slams into the right side of my bike pretty good. And I was already kind of swerving away from him and on the brakes. So, his head hit somewhere up around the front of the bike, but his body slammed back into the right side of my bike, hit my leg. And, it didn't hurt. He didn't hit that hard. By the time he hit me, he had already was starting to try to correct course and run back towards the right side of the road away from me, and I was swerving away from him. But it still knocked him over. He flipped 4, 5, 6 times in the middle of the road in front of Daniel. Daniel's locking up the brakes, trying not to run over it. He did manage to get all that on his GoPro camera. My camera, the battery already died, and I wasn't filming. So no damage to me, no damage to the bike, just ruined a pair of underwear. But deer got up and took off into the woods. We never saw it again. No blood or anything that we could see, so I don't know if it lived or not. But it was a good-sized doe. Definitely a lot bigger than the ones we see in Texas. And, that was a serious warning sign. Now it was getting dark and cold. I mean, the temperature went from upper 70s down into I'd say the upper 40s, 48, 47, pretty quick. Once you lose that sunlight, it gets cold fast in the mountains. So we stop and we're bundling up. Got, the electric vest, sweatshirt over that, neck gaiter, thick gloves, you name it. And then we rode for about an hour in the dark, just trying to get down off the mountain, off the east side of the plateau back into Montrose. And the road was still big, wide, nice. I was just watching for little things reflecting in the weeds, eyeballs or whatnot. And we come over this hill, and immediately both of us like, oh yeah, you see that reflection? And we're watching it, kind of watching everything else, and all of a sudden that thing lights up, and it's this huge like F-350 that's got every kind of light imaginable on it. And he just turned it all on at one time, right in our face. I don't know what he was doing, because he was just parked in the weeds. There was another truck there. I guess they were doing something, running around. But yeah, he clicked that on and just flat out blinded us and killed our night vision. So we had to really kind of putt after that for a minute or two. And the other problem was, there were still some switchbacks on the road, and when the terrain falls away from you, can't see which way the curves are going, and they're not like highways where they're always marked. So you're creeping along, and all of a sudden the road's going left, and it's going left into the darkness where your headlights don't really shine, so you're trying to lean the bike, but you're not really sure how far to lean the bike and how much speed to carry, so you're trying to slow down, and there's gravel, and just, yeah, it was stressful, adventure, but one of those things that, yeah, it's fun after we got back to the hotel and everybody was okay. At the time, it was like, just get me off this mountain. And so we finally rolled back into town a little after 8 o'clock, and Sarah was sitting out here in front of the hotel room, kind of glad to see us back. She was getting worried. She'd already called the second time wanting to know where we were when we were a few miles outside of town. So, it was a fun ride on that road. The washboards really sucked, but, the views were worth it. And Daniel and I had a lot of fun together. It's one of those bonding experience things. I was really glad that Sarah did not come with us on that road. She would not have had a good time. She would not have run the pace we were running initially when we could still see. And just one less thing for me to worry about. She was happy to get back to the hotel. And then, of course, once again, finding dinner just seems to be a real pain around here. We wound up at an Arby's. And, that Arby's didn't agree with me at all. Probably why I don't eat at Arby's very often. But, so good day. We decided to go ahead and book the hotel for another night because it was a reasonable price hotel. And today we're just hanging out, not even getting on the bikes. They're just parked out here in front of the hotel. Thought about maybe running out to the Black Canyon, the Gunnison, but it's like, nah, we need to do laundry. And of course, the internet sucks here, so trying to upload anything just takes forever. I've been trying to get ride reports done on Facebook and on the website, and it's just not happening. So I'm going to be even further behind on my reports now. So anyway, day 43, I think it was. It was a good day. It was a close call with the deer. The video will be on YouTube. Eventually, Daniel's got it. And I'll let you know how it goes in the future. Thank you. Bye.